we're at that place in Mike Norvell's time here where this is going to be a daily check the temperature and try to find out behind the scenes the machinations, the maneuvers, the things that are happening regarding, as I said on yesterday's show, the money people, the ones who have the power to make it happen if they need it to happen, want it to happen, whatever it might look like. I think the fan base is largely done with Mike. He's got a few staunch supporters that won't go anywhere, but I think the ones that were in the middle are done with him. The ones that wanted him gone last year definitely want him gone now, and they have grown intolerant and angry. And I don't mean that as a negative descriptor. The ones that were leaning in that direction have now been pushed off the edge and into that other camp. They want him gone now too. So I think the support for Mike is obviously waning, and the chatter and the conversation in the college football worlds will be about this, will be about how long does he have, with so many coaches being fired, and including ones that have had more success, a lot more success than Mike Norvell. James Franklin, we can say what we want about James Franklin, but he won year over year at Penn State. He was just in the playoffs last year. No, they could not get over the hump against the elite teams. And ultimately what did him in was that he consistently lost the biggest games that he had to play, home or away, it didn't matter. But now he was losing to teams in which he was a 20-point favorite. But that still doesn't change the fact that Penn State routinely was a top 15, top 20 team under James Franklin, and they would win 10 games in a Power 4 conference that's competitive, and yet he got fired. So that tells you that that's where we're at in college football. And these buyouts don't seem to mean much to everybody, but I think they do to Florida State right now. I think you have a lot of factors. You have to consider perhaps the money you're trying to save for when you pay money to the ACC to leave this conference, and whenever that gets to be doable under the new arrangement. And then you have to factor in which coaches are available that you would go for, and what's your strategy going to be. I bring all of that up because this morning I did my due diligence. I think a lot of us in this business are doing exactly that. They're reaching out to the people that are either directly involved in the big decisions from a financial standpoint, or people who are close to those people at the very least. And I know that's not perfect. You'd like to say, hey, I talked to Peter Collins this morning. I talked to Brian Williams this morning. I talked to Brian Murphy this morning. I talked to Jim Owens this morning. I'd like to be able to say that. And then I've met those guys and talked to those guys and have opportunities occasionally to have conversations with them. But we're not like, hey, I'm driving down the road, I'm calling your cell type friends. And the other part about that is those are guys that don't do their business in public like that. They are buttoned up. They're not going to necessarily tell you until it's go time. But the sense I get today, on the heels of the weekend that was and the conversation yesterday, they're not inclined to move on Mike right now. They don't want to have to do it. They're going to hold out hope that the ship is righted, that we can get a winning streak going, and it starts this weekend against Stanford, that you get that win, then you get the bye, the temperature cools a little bit, then maybe you come home and you beat Wake Forest, and then you got to buck up on and go on the road against Clemson and see what's what. Obviously, they're hoping for 8-4. They're feeling like if they can get there, they don't have to make a move. They can allow the new staff to stay in place, is their hope, and that they will recruit to this, what they're doing schematically on defense and offense, that they'll bolster what they already have, and maybe they'll gain some traction. We can all be as cynical about that as we want to be. I certainly am. I know there's a sense of everybody is jaded at this point. I get it. I also understand how complicated some of this is. College football is changing at the same time that a lot of us want change in our own backyard. And trying to marry the idea of we want a certain level of success and consistent success for our program at a time when there are a lot of changing and moving parts, it's difficult because you ask yourself, well, who's that guy? Because if you're going to move off of this guy and you're going to spend all of that money and you're going to go through this process again and you're going to start over again, then you got to ask yourself, do we have a plan in place that we feel really good about? Do we have a candidate we know we can get? Can we move forward without embarrassing ourselves and not having our name dragged through the mud more than it already is right now with these wildly inconsistent seasons and disappointing seasons, frankly? So there's just a lot to try to balance, a lot at play. It may not change, and probably likely doesn't change the way you feel if you're entrenched in your camp right now of wanting to move on. And again, I would want to move on. I have said that. But I'm recognizing that there are some real complexities here, and I'm kind of curious. I mean, it's not just that you might want to, it's that who do you want to make that decision? I think there's some real conversations in regards to that as well. So it's an interesting time, Tom.
Well, the game with Clemson is on November the 8th, and I feel like by Monday the 10th, you're going to have an answer as to who your coach in 2026 is. I've been looking at the calendar, looking back at all the other dates relative to our football schedule. I don't think you can wait much beyond the Monday after Clemson to make a decision if you're going to move and remove Mike, or if you're going to back him and you need to make a statement to that end so that they can recruit towards the early signing period in the first week of December with clarity. And the message that they can give those players is in good faith, so that the goal here is to thrive, not to survive. And right now, we're being forced to survive. So this is why I think you need to move on from Mike. I don't see the path back to thriving with him. I see a path to where he can survive another year. But where is the path to thriving as a university, as a football program, I should say? Again, it's really hard to devise and draw up that path. Winning the rest of your games is a start, but I think it's only a start. Because if you win the rest of your games, that would be wonderful. You're 9-3 preseason expectations-wise. You have done your job. Also, we'll get to December 1st with wins over Clemson and Florida. Albeit in a down year for them, we'll feel a lot better about the situation at that point.
Yes, you would.
That's only the beginning of the discussion, because now you're going to have to parlay that into a top 12 class for sure. I mean, you can't be coming in with a 16th ranked recruiting class after going 9-3. And the fan base is still mixed. I think people would feel better, but the fan base would still be, at best, mixed on Mike Norvell after a 9-3 season, as wild as that sounds. So I have a hard time drawing up a path to thriving. And what are we trying to do here? What's our goal as Florida State? Is it to survive until it becomes cheaper to move on? Or is it to thrive and go swing for the downs? Because while I agree with you, I don't want to start over again. It's been 6 years. It's not like this is year 2 or year 3 and we're like, well, God dog, between Willie and Mike, we needed to fire these guys immediately. It is 6 years. That's kind of a long time in a large data set.
Well, I don't disagree, Tom. I am of the mindset that we're never going to be an elite program under Mike Norvell. So once you come to that conclusion and your goal is to be an elite program and you don't believe that he can be an elite coach and an elite program builder, then you got to move on. But it's not that simple right now. There is the question of when. I think if you don't believe that Florida State is building towards anything, then you can let another year go by with mediocre results. Let me just say this. If they go 9-3, I would argue that there'll be a downright upbeat fan base. There'll be a segment of us who are like, come on, man. It's fool's gold. We're not going anywhere. We're not getting back to elite with this guy. And I would agree with that group. But I think that, wins have a way of changing your outlook. And if you just described it best a moment ago, if you got to 9-3, you'd have wins over Clemson on the road and Florida on the road. That ain't nothing. That would be something to encourage the fan base, and you'd feel excited about that. You wouldn't go to the ACC championship game. You wouldn't go to the playoff. But you would feel really good on the heels of 2-10 about beating Alabama, Clemson, and Florida in the same year.
Yeah, right, which you would say before the year, holy cow, sign me up for that. And I get it. And that is where the pragmatists that are in the room for this discussion, I think, could rightfully pull back if they can take away their enthusiasm for the university and say, well, hang on a minute. What's changed here? Before the season started, we were looking for 8-4, 9-3. you're telling me that in a way we're still on pace to go 8-4, 9-3. As long as one of the Florida or Clemson games goes your way, you're going to get there potentially. So what exactly has changed from the preseason? Oh, yeah, that's right. Emotions are getting in the way of making a proper decision. I hope there's somebody in the room that can argue that point, because it's an important thing to vet and then still take the temperature of the entire room. That is a reasonable place to have a discussion. For me, we were asked a question last night about, if let's just say he wins the rest of the games, what more would he need to do to have everybody behind him? If you did that and then you signed the number 7 recruiting class in the country or number 8 recruiting class in the country, hey, buddy, my pitchfork is back in the closet. Okay, now you've shown me 2 things, 2 bits of really important data that suggests that you can sustain and thrive, because you've addressed the high school problem, and you also won more games than we thought you were going to win on Tuesday, October the 14th by a lot. Then the next thing you can do is go into the portal, unfortunately, replace the entirety of your offense in order to make it go for next year. Again, a lot of things that you have to stack in sequence, and the likelihood of all of this is plus odds galore. But let's just say they won out. If they did that and they didn't finish with the 15th ranked recruiting class in the country, that by the time you get to the end of January, it's like, well, they slid to 17th. Oh, God, now there's the February signing period. Now they're 19th. If you got that thing squarely inside the top 10 to about a top 8 recruiting class, that's what it would take for me. But you know how much that is to ask of Mike Norvell, given his track record here, that you would accomplish both of those things? Buddy, I think by the time we get to a month from now, that's going to be an impossibility, but could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's highly unlikely. All the evidence tells us that it's, that's a pipe dream. I understand your point. We play out the scenarios and we have the discussion, but that's not going to happen. There's no indication that that's going to happen. And now I wonder, whether or not there won't be some more absurd losses. I think it's more likely you have a couple of absurd losses as opposed to big wins. I think that's more likely to happen.
You're correct, because if you just bean count absurd losses, disappointing performances against landmark wins in Mike's tenure, which again, it's a big sample. It is at this point.
Yeah.
The beans on the side of the losses outweigh the number of beans on the side of proud moments and wins.
Yeah, no, I think that's more likely. It's funny that one of the people that told me today that the temperature in the room was not as hot internally as it is externally for Mike. And I said, let him lose to Stanford on Saturday. They'll walk into a room where somebody left the heat at 90. I mean, they're gonna have a real hard time in that moment.
Well, I would follow up and ask the question here, because you have insight, given where you were standing on Saturday. What room and who's in that room? Because if it's the money people, it sounded to me like the temperature was plenty warm on a Saturday afternoon. It didn't have to do with the sky and with the sun in the sky.
Yeah, there's a difference between being angry and even vitriolic on the day that it's happening right before your eyes, and then having to have the conversation about the check that needs to be written. I do think that at that it's different, even for really rich people, when somebody says, okay, well, then you know what? We need $15 million from you. That's, especially for those people that have already given a lot of money. They feel betwixt and between. They're mad. They love their university. They've written big checks to try to make this right. This is the part that pisses me off. This is where I do get angry. Mike has been as well-funded as any coach we have ever had. He's gotten all the things he needs in order to succeed, and he's botched it. And that makes me mad. Not personally mad at Mike, the human being. It makes me mad that we're in this predicament again, and makes me mad that in my mind, he's not the answer. It's an unfortunate thing, because I think there was a moment in time where this could have gone very differently if he had really concentrated on recruiting and enforced it with his staff. Adam Fuller, in the eyes of many, is one of the worst recruiters Florida State's ever had. For a guy that is your defensive coordinator, he was an awful recruiter. Players didn't relate to him in any way, shape, or form. Between he and Papuchis, they can't get yeses for nothing. For these big wigs that all spurn us on signing day. Happens over and over again. And, I think if Mike had just realized, man, at the end of the day, I understand you want to be comfortable with your staff. You better have some MFers on the road that win in recruiting.
Yeah, well, Papuchis has changed his concentration from defensive line to linebacker, but special teams has been a joke. Thankfully, you have dudes with giant legs, because if you didn't have them, he'd already be gone. But I don't know what a special teams coach. Great kick. It's like, what is that coaching?
No, it's not. It's not. Hey, we got to come back and wrap it up in just a moment. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Introducing Harry's Plus. Oh, I've told you about Harry's razors before. Here's a little bit of the shaving cream they sent me. Thank you. Sent due to Beeper. Also, Harry's got the travel pack razor. I got the Harry's in the back bathroom. I got the Harry's for my kids. What are we talking about? Well, they're high school kids. One of them's a senior. He needed a good razor. Harry spent 10 years developing their most advanced razor yet, an entire decade of R&D for the smoothest possible shave. And I can attest to that because I shave every morning with Harry's. And you won't find a better blade. And I've tried all of them. Refined blade technology. I could tell you about that. I could talk to you about the quality, the barbershop quality shave. Feels like almost like a straight razor. It's unbelievable. And their razors still cost less than Gillette Fusion, which is crazy. So you get this premium shave without this exorbitant price. Risk-free trial right now. If you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right. No questions asked. Here's what you do, guys. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/warchant. Get you a Harry's razor. The set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shaving gel. Got that too. Yeah. And travel cover to protect your blades when you go on the road. Just head to harrys.com/warchant to claim this offer. And after you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support this show, the Jeff Cameron Show. Support Warchant. Tell them that we sent you. That's right, harrys.com/warchant. Did you see the play in which Bryce Terang avoided getting hit by a pitch that would have tied the game last night? Did you watch any baseball?
No, well, I did, yes. I didn't have to watch the game in Toronto for long. The middle innings, obviously, is when Seattle pulls away.
Yeah.
And so by the time we got on Smash, that game is well resolved. And when I'm done with Smash, I did see, not in live time, but I did see on Twitter that I better go check the NLCS because of the wild play that happened. And I got there just in time to see, all the crazy replays and how Brian Anderson, who is the best play-by-play guy in the game, actually got it right. Marchand was killing him for saying that it was, he called the play incorrectly. Buddy, that was impossible to call, first of all. And secondly, he called it right that it wasn't caught. But no, I did not see that situation as it was a 2-1 ball game in the ninth, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, so listen, a couple things here. Kudos to the damn Dodgers for doing something that teams so frequently will not do, and it drives me nuts. I think at the end of this year, you're gonna start to see some pushback on this because I think there's gonna be some metrics now that suggest that it is not life or death that you pull a pitcher when they're going through the third time through the order. If their stuff is missing bats and nobody can hit them, then you go ahead and let them face the order again. And then if you'd like, heightened awareness, I know, but let's just see on this particular day if maybe that kind of stuff is overwhelming. Because, I don't know. I'm 54 years old. I've seen a ton of baseball. And there are pitchers, dominant ones, who I don't care if they went through the order 16 times, they'd still be getting outs. Like, at some point, people just couldn't hit Nolan Ryan. They couldn't hit Dwight Gooden. There were years in which you couldn't hit J.R. Richard. You just couldn't. They were that good. Sandy Koufax, like, F your third time through the order. Hit this. And you couldn't. And they would go 7, 8 innings. They'd give up. Bob Gibson, 2 hits, 12 strikeouts, 113 pitches of suck it. You're not going to hit it. I don't care if you've seen it 15 times. I'm throwing 99. You can't hit it. I'm intimidating. I have secondary, thirdary, fourth-dairy stuff. There's nothing you can do. So Blake Snell, they're debating whether or not to throw him back out there in the 8th inning. He's given up 1 hit. They can't hit him. 1 effing hit. They're like, yeah, go ahead back out there, Blake, because our bullpen sucks. and our bullpen is what's going to cost us the game. We don't want to use it if possible. Go ahead. And by the way, Tom, really quickly, I thought about this, and I would have done it. They pulled him in the 9th to go to their bullpen, and we all saw what happened. They almost lost the game. Could have lost the game because their bullpen sucks. And he was at 99 pitches when they pulled him after 8 one-hit innings. Dude, I'd have run him back out there for the 9th. Homeboy would have pitched a complete game last night because they weren't going to hit him. They weren't sniffing it. It's, to me, we got to get back to that. If you've got a guy whose stuff is electrifying and he throws 3 and 4 pitches for a strike, and on that particular day he's commanding all of them, and I know it is so rare to find a pitcher, even really good ones, who on a given start can throw all 3, all 4, God forbid 5 if they're a freak like Skeens or somebody like that. If you got 5 pitches you throw for a strike, the batter is at your mercy if you're actually throwing them all for strikes.
That's why Yu Darvish for the Padres has always killed the Mets, because he always had 6 pitches on the given day. He goes against us. There's no tendency. You can't get into an advantageous count and understand that, well, he's got to give in here and throw me X pitch.
Right.
He doesn't. The dynamics of it are interesting. I wonder how much freedom is left up to the manager in that situation, if the manager must go rogue in that situation, if there's an understanding and there was a discussion before the game with the pitcher that you're going to go beyond a certain number that perhaps psychologically you're saving up for. It's an old thing in weight training. You did that a lot more than I did it, but I've done some weight training. If you set a number of reps for yourself before you start the set, magically your muscles are going to start wobbling a little bit when you get to that number, instead of just saying go until failure, which is a little bit different psychologically in the impact of how you're going to execute a set. So I wonder if there's a discussion that has to be different in a playoff game than it is, say, in August or in July, about how you're going to manage in a given night. For Snell, it's an interesting one. I'm sure he's been waiting for a moment like this, given what happened to him earlier in his career. So he probably already has a prepared answer for that. Unlike if you have somebody like a Schlittler for the Yankees who's so young that he might not have been there before, so you're not exactly sure how he's going to handle that. But those are a couple of things that go into it. But then also, I think there's the fear factor for the manager for being wrong the other way.
That's what it is.
You don't want to be Grady Little. You don't want to be, which Grady had indicators that he needed to yank Pedro.
A million indicators. They were hitting him. He had all year long been giving it up after 100 pitches.
There's a moment in my team's postseason history where it was the clinching game for the Royals, where Harvey got through the 8th and he looked dominant. And I think it could have been the correct call to put him back out there in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
He did, and he sucked, and the World Series was won on that night. So I think there's a fear of being wrong for that reason, because then your name lives in infamy as a manager. So there's a lot of forces at play there, some of them about the modern game of baseball, some of them fear-driven. It's always a fascinating thing, because in baseball, you've got about 10, 15 minutes to discuss it before the decision happens, because the other team's got to bat first. That's the other part of it. So it builds. Sometimes in football, we might lament it for 5 minutes, but football happens so fast, you don't really have time to digest what that decision is all about. Baseball gives you more time to let that sit and marinate and be discussed.
I think that we're, and Blake's got a lot of postseason experience, and you're right. The Rays fans everywhere were watching last night going, really? Okay. So you're in
an organization that Friedman is running. Like, really? Okay. Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah. We're going to roll him back out there, huh? Yeah, I seem to remember a time that could have happened. Yeah, man, it's just when a guy is missing that many bats, or the hard contact's not there, and he's controlling all of his arsenal for strikes that night. If you're one of those upper echelon pitchers, I'm not talking about some middling guy that maybe you worry about more with that situation. Their pitches aren't as effective, whatever it might be. But man, when you got an elite guy, I saw it so many times this year. They're trying to baby Paul Skeens because he's the franchise, but he's a horse. I mean, he's 6'5", 260. I mean, he's a gigantic. You saw him in person. He's a gigantic man. What are we doing here? That's different than if a guy is 5'11", 180, and somehow has this Pedro Martinez arm that you worry about. Okay, that's a little different. But every pitcher is different. You got to gauge that. John Smoltz is a big, strong man. And he, like, when you see John Smoltz in person, I have twice, and he's big. He's a big dude. Like, that guy, when he would tell managers, no, I'm good, you kind of look at him like, yeah, I think he probably is. I think he's probably good.
Also, another factor that goes into this, he only pitched in 11 games, so he should be fresh.
Yes.
There's a lot of times when these guys get pushed beyond their innings count that they've ever gone before, and I side with the manager in that scenario. That happened again. It happens to all of us as our teams in this modern era push farther into a pennant race. It doesn't necessarily even have to be October. It could be September. Like, well, he's 46 innings beyond anything he's ever done in his career. And so maybe in that instance, first sign of trouble, 100 pitches, whatever, it's third time through the order, whatever it is, you might be a little bit more hesitant to push a guy back out there. But he has the experience. He has the mettle. He's pitched in these games. And he was hurt for a lot of the season. So his arm should be fresh as hell. The only time where I don't second guess a manager is if you've got a good closer or a decent closer and you get through 8, okay. Once you get between the 8th and the 9th inning, I got you. If it's between the 6th and the 7th or the 7th and the 8th, I think we can have that debate. But if you get through 8 complete and you've got a closer that you feel really good about and maybe it's the right part of the order for that closer, I'm never going to second guess the manager in that situation.
Well, the Dodgers don't. And they brought in their closer and tried to lose the game.
They did.
And so there you go. I mean, that game ends with the bases loaded.
Yep.
So, and the only run scored is in that inning.
Well, and that 2-2 pitch, just lay off the high cheese, my man. And then you've got the ultimate scenario that we all dream of when we're in the backyard playing ball.
Well, I began this by bringing up the Terang thing, and the reason I bring it up is if he doesn't avoid that hit, being hit by pitch, it ties the game. But I will say, and I've asked people this, and I never thought about it in the brief time that I played, and I never played anything close to a level beyond high school. But I've been told by people that it is a natural reaction. It is nearly impossible. Even though there's some guys in baseball history that you see looked steely, that was who they were. So like Albert Bell, his pride wouldn't let him move out of the way of a pitch unless it was at his head. So his whole thing was, I'm going to take it because I'm stronger than a baseball and I'll break you in half if you hit me again. Like, he was a tough guy, right? And you've seen that footage of Gary Sheffield wearing that Pedro pitch that's 100 miles per hour, and he never flinches. Like that, Tom, that is the scariest thing I've ever seen. That tells me right then and there I would never fight Gary Sheffield. And I don't think Pedro wanted to, if you look back at that video, the one that you were imitating just now. Like, Pedro's steely and just asked for the ball, but he doesn't want any part. Yeah, he wants no part of that. And what my favorite part of that video is Sheffield says, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. That's Sheffield knowing that he's a dangerous person. Like something's wrong with him, and he knows it. And I think that's admirable of Sheffield's part, letting him know, like, no, I ain't the one you want to do that to. I might kill you. So unless you're that way, wired that way, it is natural. It is normal for anybody to have a very hard object hurling at them at great speeds to instinctively get the hell out of the way of the ball. And so I know for years I was guilty of this. I would yell at the TV, you got to let that hit you. But I remember talking to some baseball people later on, and they're like, yeah, man, that ain't a thing. Most people are not wired that way. Most people, you ever been hit by a baseball? I know you have. I'm talking to people out there. Man, it sucks. It's not pleasant. It hurts a lot, like a lot. And I don't even mean getting hit by 95 miles per hour. If we walked out to the front yard and you listening to this, I took a baseball and I threw it at 60 miles per hour and hit you in the elbow or the knee or the ankle or the ribs, dog, that is painful. You're going to be pissed. It hurts. It hurts a lot.
All you had to do was put 13-year-old me in the left side of the batter's box. I'm a righty. I would have gotten hit. Ain't no thing. It just would have hit me. I wouldn't have seen it.
You wouldn't have seen it coming.
No. And the crowd would have gone wild.
It would have been like, good job, Lang.
That's right. I'd be like, damn it. It happened again.
I wasn't trying to take that, but okay.
I don't know the name of their manager. I'd never learned it after council left, but I'd be like, Coach, it happened again.
It's Pat
Help!
Murphy. It's Pat Murphy. He used to
Pat
be the
Murphy.
manager. He used to be the manager of was the coach at Arizona State when we played him at FSU.
You could hit me with a hockey puck, ain't no thing. He put me in the batter's box. I'm like, ooh, I'm Brady Hoke. Ooh.
Hey, listen, I've been hit by 90 plus in the ribs, and it ain't cool. And you have to try to, it takes your breath away. And the funny part about it is when that happens and you're going to first, you're trying to be tough, but deep down, you feel like crying. It hurts. It hurts a lot, at least when you're a kid. I mean, as a grown-up, I might not feel like crying, but you can't breathe.
Well, I could tell you having the spray chart. I have a spray chart for my body in terms of where the baseball is hit. Honestly, the easiest one to take is off the hip. If it goes off the hip bone, ain't no thing. You feel nothing, and you will trot over to first. But if it gets you in the meat between the ribs and the hip bone, there's no breathing to be had. There's no breathing whatsoever. And then the ribs aren't pleasant either because usually the stitches will present on your ribs. You'll actually see the stitches at the ball.
Yes, you will. I was always cool getting hit in the middle of the back. I didn't love it, but I could live with it. And I was okay with the ass cheek, obviously okay with the thigh, not okay with the calf, shin, or knee, not okay with the elbow, definitely not okay with the wrist. Nobody wants to get hit in the head, but I could deal with the shoulder. You can drill my shoulder. A little too close to my head for comfort, but I could deal with the shoulder.
How about the chest?
I never turned into a baseball.
You can't see it coming. When you can't see, you don't know what to do. And so,
they teach you. I remember the first day Bryce was playing at Meridian. They're like, now, guys, I see a lot of you do this when you panic. You're turning into the pitcher. You can't turn into it. It's going to hit you dead in the chest.
All I needed were some Oakley goggles, and I would have been fine. But instead, I'm like, whoa, and I just raised my arms and smack right in the chest.
They teach you early on for muscle memory purposes to just you got to turn your back to the pitcher as soon as you think you're going to get hit. You look at the catcher. Just look at the catcher and see what happens. Embrace for it. You're going to get hit. Look at the catcher.
Like Coach Mr. Blasi would always say, I don't know how you get such a jump off the bat when you're in the field, because I was a good outfielder. He's like, I don't know how you get such a jump off the bat if you can't see the crap coming out of his hand. I'm like, I don't tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I enjoyed yesterday. We had 2 NFL football games, and one of them turned out to be great. And then you have, or improbable anyhow. And then the other one, was interesting because I think we got to start asking questions about who the Bills are. And what I mean by that is look at their wins. Their wins are over ass teams. They beat the Saints. They beat the Jets. They beat the Dolphins. They've beat nothing but terror. And now Baltimore. They beat Baltimore. Baltimore's 1-5. So they've beaten nobody literally they beat the worst teams in football. The teams that they've played that are above 5, they lose to. I'm 2 fingers to my eyes, 2 fingers back to you, Buffalo.
Josh Allen looked thoroughly confused by what Atlanta was doing last night. It wasn't just about the pressure speeding him up. When he's throwing the ball, he's thrown into coverage, and then he has this stare through the wall look on his face on the sidelines, looking at the coaches on the field. He's totally confused with what he saw. Now, Atlanta's scheme will do that. We saw that in week 1. The Bucs were overwhelmed by it. They made enough big plays. But if you're unable to run the ball on 1st and 2nd down, which Buffalo kind of was, you're playing right into their hands. 4-man pressures, 5-man pressures. They invested heavily in that pass rush, and it looks like it was a good investment.
Well, I want to point out that they got a big problem in Buffalo because Keon Coleman had 3 receptions for 11 yards last night. He kind of looked useless and really not somebody they're going to target all that much moving forward. I think they're mad at him, understandably. Well, I shouldn't say that. He had 6 targets, but I'm wondering about that relationship right about now. But I would argue that the reason that nobody's open is because he's throwing to Josh Palmer and Shakir and Shavers and Davis, and he doesn't have anybody to throw to. But that receiving core is butt cheeks. It's just butt cheeks in Buffalo. Yeah. He's got nobody. Keon better step up, man.
I don't know, though. Like, if you got a 5-man pressure and somehow he's thrown into double, that means he's not seeing it. Like that's
Well, okay, but then now we got to ask why, because this has been 2 weeks in a row with them in Buffalo where they have looked shaky, and it's not like Josh Allen hasn't proven that he understands how to read a defense, and it's got the same coordinator that he loves. I think it's the talent. I think they don't have people that are open. I mean,
it's possible. Yeah.
Who's the guy that's getting open for them? He's had good receivers his whole career.
Well, and if I'm Atlanta, that game's over at halftime, and you botch that situation 3 ways to Sunday. They've got a real offensive coordinator problem. They refuse to lean on you with Bijan Robinson, and it drives.
That first half, he was amazing.
He was, but here you are up 21-7, and you get to midfield, and now you're putting him out in pass routes, and you're throwing him the ball, and you're running end arounds, and you're using Algier. God almighty, every game, he's off to a good start. And it's not like you've used him 14 times in the first half and he needs a breather. And they insist on throwing the ball. They insist on using Algier on first down and second down. And now they're splitting Bijan out wide on third down. Will you stop it? Go give the ball to the best running back in football, not named Saquon Barkley. He might just be the best one in football, period. And go win the game. Be up 24-7 at the break. Not 28-7. You put yourself in that position where London is a half yard short. I don't blame him in that moment.
Right.
But just center the ball, kick the ball, be up 24-7, and the game's over. They lose in those little situations, and that's a really good team that if they finish with 9-10 wins, it'll be on their coaching. It's not on their talent. They've got a lot going for them right now.
The weird thing with them, though, is I think teams are just going to start taking away Drake London. He had 16 targets last night. Now, he did have 150-plus yards receiving and a touchdown and double-digit receptions. I'm really aware of who they target because of fantasy and because of my prop bets every week. And they can't throw seemingly to anybody else, and that's why they're splitting out Bijan Robinson. And, Kyle Pitts is still useless. Thanks for the 3 catches and 18 yards, Kyle Pitts. When we drafted you like insanely when we did the number, I forget which number he was in the draft, but I remember for a tight end, it was absurd. I don't know. Bijan is a crazy good player because he had 6 catches last night, and to go along with 70 yards rushing that he had, he's but when you have 140 something of it, like the first 2 quarters, you got to. He's a freak, by the way. Congratulations to all you guys who drafted Bijan Robinson number 1. My dumbass had the number 1 pick. Well, I shouldn't say my dumbass, but I took Jamar Chase. And, of course, I could have known that the starting quarterback was going to get hurt. I could have had Bijan.
Yeah.
Damn it, man.
They that's a team. So you look at that win and then what Atlanta has coming up schedule-wise. And I think if you're Tampa, it's in your best interest to win 12 games because Atlanta could go on a real run here. That is the makings. They're dangerous, which is why the Carolina game, they always seem to do something like that where you go, what the hell?
Well, they got straight up shut out in that game, which still remains crazy to me. 30-0.
They have these weird results, and a lot of times it's specifically with the Panthers. I don't know what it is about them and the Panthers, but they have these weird results with them. That is, you watched them last night, and you see how much they're controlling the game. Again, it's 21-7 at halftime. You're a half yard away from being 28-7, but 24 is the number there. Psychologically, that game is in a totally different place. That's as much as you get total anyway. Like, I don't understand, and it's got a little bit of Mario Cristobal to it. You feel like it's going up and down the field. You see that pass rush. It's relentless, and you're saying, how is this still within 2 scores or within touch in the second half? I know there's a lot of Falcons fans that listen to us. I wonder what their take is. That just looks like a frustrating team to me. I'm not even trying to subtly troll as a Bucs fan. That is potentially a really, really good football team.
Really quick on that note, holy moly, NFC. Like, this is insane. If the playoffs started today, you have a bunch of teams with winning records that would not be in the playoffs. This is okay. I'll give you an example. So I guess we could argue the NFC North is the best division in football. Every team in the division is now over 500. The last place Chicago Bears have won 3 straight and are 3-2. That's crazy. The Packers are actually in first place because of the tie. They're 3-1-1. Detroit's 4-2, and they're in second place. I don't think we're believers right now in Minnesota, but they are 3-2. They're in it.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
Minnesota really quickly, just watching them, look, what they did against Cleveland was impressive considering a lot of the offensive linemen they're missing. That's the key to their season. I think you stay with Wentz, offensive line gets healthy, they may turn into a dangerous wild cardish team. But you're right to say you put them more in the camp with the Bears than you would say the Lions and the Packers.
Yeah, I'm not putting them with the Lions and the Packers. Meanwhile, our division, I mean, if it weren't for the Saints, who, everybody beats, that rest of that division is problematic. The Bucs are good. The Falcons are good. Carolina's tricky. They're 3-3. You don't want to fool around with Carolina, man. They, especially there. You don't like playing Carolina at Carolina. It's a weird. It's always been that way. It's always been that way. I hate playing at Carolina. I just feel it in my gut every time we go there. I'm like, we're going to lose this game, and I know we don't. But it feels like we're going to lose to Carolina on the road all the time.
Well, but it does come down to the final moments like it did 2 years ago on Decision Sunday. I mean, that game was far, far too close. And you're right. It always is. Whether it was the grass surface and now they have the turf surf, it doesn't matter. You go up there, you're like, the way the sun is in the air.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
Like, something doesn't look right about this place.
It never feels right there. There are places like that. It's FSU and NC State. Every time we're at NC State, as soon as you turn on your TV, you're like, oh, it's all wrong for us, baby. I don't feel good about this. You just know.
So, well, here you go. This is a perfect Panthers game this weekend to see if they've pressed forward or not. They're playing the Jets.
Oh, well, they'll beat the Jets. The Jets are done.
That game, I have a feeling, is going to be 13-13 in the fourth quarter. You're going, well, Carolina, I can't figure out who the hell you are. And then they play the Bills the next week at home. And you watch, they'll be up 23-17 in the fourth quarter. You're like, Carolina, I don't know what the hell you are.
I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm going to early bet Carolina and get my plus odds right now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and project. Carolina's going to beat Buffalo in Carolina. They are.
So since they are that fascinating team that operates in the invisible hand, are the Carolina Panthers. Here's their next handful of games. And I think you'd go, for each one of them. Jets, Bills, Packers, Saints, Falcons. They could go 3-2 in that stretch.
Yeah, the Falcons are on the road, though, so we'll see. And I don't think they'll beat – what was the one that you said?
They got to go to Lambeau to play the Packers.
Yeah, they're not going to beat the Packers.
But they got the Saints at home. So, in that stretch, though, if, they could go 3-2 in that stretch.
I think they will go 3-2 in that stretch with an outside possibility of 4-1.
Right.
Yeah. Carolina's starting to be like okay. All right, I see you working over there, Carolina. You got a little something to you. Anyhow, the NFC is a jumbled mess, and everybody's above 500, like everybody. And as I said before, the Saints are on the clock. If the Jets aren't on the clock. Can't decide if the Jets are on the clock or the Saints are on the clock. I pronounced before the season began that the Saints were on the clock. I'm now thinking maybe the Jets are on the clock with the Saints getting the second pick and the Dolphins getting the third pick. We think that's about fair right about now? Although the Dolphins they may be wrestling for that first pick. Looks like it's all falling apart there. Their freaking quarterback is out here rolling players on the team after games. You can't do it, man. You can't do it. Chef Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.